think the term that comes to mind after our chat with Roz is reluctant business person. Like, she knows how to be a business person. She knows that she needs a business plan and needs, a manufacturing plan and all of this sort of stuff. She has a really solid understanding of how to run a business. But in reality, it's not very fun. It's a bit boring. And I can totally relate to that because, and I think a lot of people who have come into a social enterprise from the charity side of things, like the doing good side of things, would really relate to that. I have to do all this boring business stuff to actually make the good happen.
This is what the interview that you're going to listen to today is about. It's really about talking about the struggles that we're facing when we are building a social enterprise. And even it started on a very candid note when we talk about the interview fatigue and the term inspiration porn came out.
Yeah, I think there's, especially working in the charity sector, and you know from personal experience that interviewers can often be searching for that inspirational quote to put up and be like, listen to this amazing person that's built this business and is doing good and amazing things and they're an amazing person and that. But in actual fact, it's really hard being a social entrepreneur. It's really hard working in a charity. And there's a lot of stuff that is really hard.
And I love how she mentioned that when even I started thinking about the concept of the social enterprise that she was going to build. And she said, I was quite naive thinking there's this cause that I'm passionate about. I'm just going to wire money to this cause. But at the same time, she had to then think about doing a formal agreement to manage the expectation around that partnership. And that's part of some of the most boring things that she had to do.
But on the other hand, while I was sitting there nodding with her, I was looking at it from the charity point of view and the amount of times that charities would have been burnt by people, not like Roz insofar as like her personally, but the type of people that come to the charity and be like, I'm going to give you all this money and it's going to be amazing. And depending on that sum of money, they make budgetary plans or put in time and energies in their reputation to actually promote the partnership. So without those formal agreements, it becomes this sort of wishy-washy, really what people think charity is, this not a business.
Yes.
Which is completely the wrong way to look at it. And so I think what Roz talks about in the interview is so important for people who are looking to set up a social enterprise to know.
Yes, exactly. Very much so. And I think also that the fact that she has to wear all these hats, and some of these hats that we have to wear, we don't want to wear them.
They're really ugly hats.
They're really ugly hats. They make us, looks bad. But no, she said that, some of the reality of, even if she's not producing the item directly, she has to deal with all the organization of it, and obviously the communication and promotion and all the bits and pieces. But there are some roles that she'd rather not do.
Yeah.
And then she talked about how we can live the most important thing to the last minute, yet they're the things that you really, really need to get right in order to be successful. And it's just human nature, I think.
And I think also when you're wearing all of those hats, all of these things you have to think about. And if you're someone like me, as soon as you think about budget, your brain just literally goes blank and you have just birds just going, what? You can actually lose sight of why you're doing something, especially when you're faced with challenges. You're going, what am I doing? Oh my God, I don't know anything about budgets or bamboo weaving to make a pad waterproof and all this sort of stuff. And you can just go, well, what the hell am I doing?
Yes.
And so you lose sight of your why, which could cause another person to just collapse under it,
Definitely. And I don't want to give it away just yet because you're going to have a listen to the interview, but you're going to see her tips to actually cope with that and stay focused on the why. Because when you are a social entrepreneur, you're not faced necessarily with the cause every day. So how do you keep focus on that so that you can cope with all the mundane tasks or the less interesting tasks as well?
And you'd think as a woman, losing sight of her why would be a little less hard because as a woman she would have to use a sanitary pad every month, because she gets a period. But the real why for her is women in developing countries who don't have access to sanitary pads. In fact, if you're not aware, women in developing countries are sometimes shunned from their communities and aren't given any sort of resources to deal with their periods. And it's so shameful. And they often, especially for young women who are just starting having their periods, they don't go to school. They miss out on their education. And so basically, because of their lack of access to real ways of dealing with their periods, they're being forced to use things like bark, newspaper, and in some cases nothing, and they're literally shunned to a shack until they're done menstruating. And that's not okay.
That's not okay.
That is not okay.
And we take these things for granted.
We so do. Like,
we were just talking even before the interview how we wait to the last minute to run to the shop and buy what we need. Yes, we do have conversation about our period.
Mel and I are very well versed in talking about vaginas, having worked together in a women's gynecological health charity.
But, this reminded me that, I just came back from a cruise ship and I was at sea for 2 weeks. And obviously, I packed at the last minute, as I do. I didn't plan my dates. Or anyway, my body just surprised me as things happen. And I ended up on a cruise ship with very little to no option.
Yep.
And I panicked. I really panicked because I thought, well, I am here stuck at high sea for 2 weeks with no option. So I cannot relate to the distress whatsoever, but I can see how to be able to give women obviously access to product, but not just product, but also better choice, better options, sustainable option. I think that's very, very important, and also make it a bit fun.
Yes, I think Tsuno does a great job in making, well, no one can make a period fun. But they do a really great job. Like, Roz is going to talk through her crowdfunding campaign and some of the tools she used to actually make purchasing your pads fun. And I have Tsuno pads, and the boxes, if you get a chance, go onto Tsuno's Instagram and check out the designs of the boxes. They're beautiful. They're designed by a local artist. And so she's sort of trying to make something that isn't that fun. And it's really beautiful.
Welcome to The Human Factor, the show where we explore social change through the eyes of social entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders. My name is Melanie Roussel, her name is Erin McKay, and we are your hosts.
Today we talk to Roz Campbell, a social entrepreneur with an industrial design background. While Roz was traveling through Europe, something happened to her that has happened to every woman around the world. She got her period. And while traveling, she was introduced to the menstrual cup, an environmentally sustainable alternative to pads and tampons. After this, Roz fell into a rabbit hole of feminine hygiene, which led her to learn that girls in developing countries were using bits of bark, newspaper, and more to deal with their periods.
On today's episode, you'll hear about Roz's social enterprise, Tsuno, and how she went from exhibiting a chair she designed to raising over $40,000 to manufacture environmentally friendly sanitary pad in a matter of months. Let's have a listen. Welcome to the show, Roz. Erin and I are not really those people, especially considering where we met. But many people shy away from a discussion about periods and all the products that come with it. So to start off with, how would you describe yourself and what you do for people?
Hi, I'm Roz. I guess I am independent of my business, but my business is called Tsuno, and it's basically a business that started because I realized that there were millions of women around the world that didn't have access to adequate feminine hygiene sanitary products. And for a lot of girls in developing nations, that was affecting their ability to go to school. I decided to start a business to tackle that problem. Yeah, I guess I would describe myself as a creative thinker and compassionate, and I do like to take on taboos as a kind of like area in my life. Is something like I've often been drawn towards things that most people don't like talking about, because I don't know why. Maybe it's just something. Yeah, I actually don't know why. It just has happened. That's an interesting question. I haven't actually been asked about myself really in that way.
I use a sanitary pad, every month of my life, but I can't even imagine what goes into actually producing one. So what I'm wondering about is, what's a typical day like for you? You don't physically make the pads.
I found a manufacturer who produces them. They're based in China, and they're like a company that they research and develop sustainable fibers, and they came up with this product that is like a non-woven material that's made from bamboo and this corn fiber. And they realized that the application for it would be really useful for nappies and sanitary pads. And so then I found them and contacted them, and I was like, I want to start this business. This is like what my business idea is, and how do I buy? I don't know, like how many do I have to buy, basically. And I guess I went to the factory and I got to see the process of how a sanitary pad is made and what goes into it. But from a daily point of view, from getting these sanitary pads that are made in this factory to Australia and then running the business and promoting it and getting retailers and distributors and customers and, all that stuff, that's kind of what I do on a daily basis. It's like an organizational role and media, communications person, and as an entrepreneur, I guess, and from a startup point of view, I have to do everything.
You are the lady with all the hats.
Yeah, every hat.
So speaking of communications, like I follow you on Instagram, and my impression is that you're surrounded by this group of amazing women who are really passionate about women's rights and including their right to unashamedly have a period. And what I'm wondering is, like, how did you go from being, as you sort of said, someone who's like, what do I be doing in life, to being sort of a little bit of a voice for women's rights, especially being involved in big movements like the Australian government's tampon tax?
It's kind of happened organically through the first time I sat down in this class at uni and found out about what women and girls were doing when they didn't have access, like what they were using to. I became an ambassador for the charity called One Girl that was working in Sierra Leone is working in Sierra Leone helping those women. And I slowly, as time went on, I learned a little bit more, and then I learned about female genital mutilation, and then I became involved in their community. And then when I launched Tsuno, I started getting more involved in the kind of feminist organisations and reaching out to them to find out if they would be interested in kind of doing collaborations and supporting Tsuno. And then I guess I've attracted these kind of people, and also I've been attracted to them because of the nature of the product. It goes hand in hand, I guess, with the kind of product I've developed and the community that's kind of formed around it.
Yeah,
that's excellent. And what I'm wondering is, obviously, the One Girl campaign, Do It in a Dress, has obviously played a big part with Tsuno. But what I'm wondering is, do you think you would have been driven to create an environmentally sustainable pad without the social focus, should you not have had that experience with One Girl campaign?
I was already starting to develop the business plan when I decided to do the fundraising initiative, but it definitely made it, I hadn't actually had an experience where I'd gone to a country, like I hadn't been to Sierra Leone and had to face that reality. So where I'm coming from is this like really privileged Australian background where I can just be shocked at the thought of that kind of experience. And I did find that like the experience it wasn't enjoyable, but it wasn't terribly, like it wasn't really bad because I did have access to all these creature comforts that I have in Australia, like a shower and a car and the ability to, I'll still be fed and, I don't need to keep working for the whole week. If
no one's banishing you to a hut because you have your period. Yeah.
Exactly. So I do feel like it was eye-opening for me, but it wasn't that hard, but it definitely was motivating. I think another part of it that it taught me was that people cared about the issue, and that it was my first kind of dipping my toe into the water of fundraising and knowing how much support I had from my own like immediate community for, wanting to tackle this issue. So I think if I hadn't have done it from that perspective, I wouldn't have felt the confidence that I had the support. But it definitely was confirming that it's not easy.
So I know from reading your story online that you did a lot of research to get you to like the point that you talked about, you know, going to China and meeting your manufacturers. But obviously you then needed to raise the money to go into production to create the amount of pads that you actually needed. And what I'm wondering is what actually, because there's a lot of different ways you could have done that, what led you to crowdfunding as your option?
The options pretty much for me were ask for money from my family, ask for money from the bank, or crowdfund. I didn't see investment at the time, like venture capitalists or something like that, as being, I just didn't really know anything about it. And the idea of borrowing that much money from my family really freaked me out. It was like, and with no obvious, like, you know, I just had this idea, but I wasn't sure if it was actually going to be viable in terms of having like customers, if it was something that people would really be buying, like if they really want to buy it. A bank, I was coming straight out of uni, so I didn't have a credit history. I've never owned a credit card, and I knew that they probably wouldn't look twice at me. They were just like, whatever, go away. And going down that traditional path definitely kind of deterred me as well. I don't know why. I just was like, I want to try something different. And also the stress of like, yeah, just the idea that it might not work, and then I just have this loan that's gathering interest and all these pads that I wouldn't know what to do with. And so, yeah, crowdfunding just made sense. Like it was like, what have I got to lose? I have put in almost a year of research and planning into this, but that's just my time. Like I haven't actually put in lots and lots of dollars. So all I've got to lose is the fact that it might not work. And then I know that it wasn't going to be viable, and yeah, no one wanted it. So, and what I was asking for in the crowdfunding campaign wasn't a lot of people. It was basically just, if you want this product to exist, pre-order a few boxes of pads. It wasn't like I was asking people to donate hundreds of dollars. I just knew that with the volume that I was ordering from the manufacturers, I did need to have the proof that I would have at least 1,000 people willing to buy it.
Very much so. I think that's the difference with the bank loan, isn't it? Is that the bank loan, you're not, like you mentioned before, tipping your toes into the water, so to speak. This is a bit of a market research exercise as well. But what I wonder is, obviously, you know, you ran not only one successful crowdfunding campaign, but also you just ran another crowdfunding campaign recently. Yeah, it's fantastic. And you raised over $45,000 to extend your Tsuno line to include tampons. So for those who don't know your brand just yet. So can you share with us a few ways that you made crowdfunding a success for you?
Collaborating and networking with like-minded kind of businesses and people who are interested in the same field or the same kind of area. If you're starting something and you've got your immediate support that you're going to get, you know that you can rely on this support from your friends and family because they love you and they want to support you. That will only take you so far, especially with a big campaign like this. You really need to reach more people. You need to kind of leverage off, I guess, other people's networks. And by doing that, you've got to like get their network. Like, I don't know, people care about a certain amount of people in their life. And so if you're involving more people in a project, there's going to be more people that care about it. That's kind of the way that I see the best way to get anything happening is like get more people involved and make it worthwhile for them. So that's probably the biggest kind of point. The other one is make it easy for people to support. Like don't make it too difficult. Make it something like if they, I don't know, it's useful for them. It's either fun, it brings them entertainment, or it's something that is really practical and useful. Like they're going to be buying it anyway, or they're, you know, it's not going to put them out too much. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
I really like your last tip because I think that I have a marketing background, and I think that sometimes people with their product can be a little bit biased of their own product, and they can lose sight of, like you're saying, just a way to connect and make it easy for people to really support you. So I really like this idea of just, you know, kind of bringing things back to basic. Is it fun? Is it useful? And I think people lose sight of such a simple proof. So that's a really good tip.
Yeah. Will it bring value to the person as opposed to it's going to bring value to you? And that's obvious. I think that definitely keep that in mind if you're offering if you're trying to do a crowdfunding campaign for something that might not necessarily be a physical product that people are going to want, there's other ways around coming up with the rewards that can make it fun and entertaining.
Yeah, speaking of, for those of you who don't know how crowdfunding works, you offer rewards in return for a set amount of money given. And one of your rewards was actually a personalised rap sung by Vagina. And I love it. And what I'm actually wondering is how you came up with this as a reward, because it is definitely thinking outside the box, and that was definitely a pun that was intended just then.
Okay, so through Instagram, so I rely on Instagram, you mentioned before, a lot to help kind of build my community. I just love it. It's just a fun way to connect with people. But through Instagram, I came across a girl who was a sister of someone who I know called Hannah Malarski, and she is the most amazing comedian and actress. That she just was putting these little videos of herself in character on Instagram, filming them on her iPhone and just putting a wig on and just getting into character and doing a little skit. And I became a little bit obsessed with her. I was just so excited anytime she'd release a new video. I was like, oh, Hannah's, like, tell my boyfriend, I'd be like, Hannah's released a new video, let's watch it. And she didn't have many people following her, but just thought she was amazing. And it got to the point where I was preparing this crowdfunding campaign for the tampons, and I often do this where I leave the most important job to the last minute. I planned the budget and done all the budgeting and everything to do with the write-up and, everything to do with the tampons was all done. But this detail of actually pretty much the most important thing of a crowdfunding campaign is you've got to get people's attention, and the video is a really good way to do that. And I just thought that I'd be able to put it together in a day. I was like, yeah, I'll just leave that to the very last minute. That'd be fine. But in doing so, I thought, oh, maybe I could ask Hannah if she would be interested, because I know that she does it. She does things on her iPhone and she's just really entertaining, and maybe it won't take her too long. And so I contacted her. I'd never met her before, but I contacted her through Instagram, and I just said, hi, Hannah, my name's Roz. I blah, blah, blah. I run this business, and I was just wondering if I could chat with you about a project that I have coming up. And she said she'd heard of me or heard of Tsuno, and she said she'd love to be involved. And then I called her and we chatted, and I was like, oh, I need it in the next 2 weeks. And then she was actually going to Thailand in 2 weeks as well. So she had a lot going on. But she turned up to my house and was like, okay, I have this idea. And I had only met her for about 10 minutes, and she was already in my lounge room putting on this Scottish accent, being like, I'm your vagina, and I can't do it. But just rattled off this idea, and I was like, I knew that you would come up with something amazing. And I I was just really lucky that she was really interested in helping. And she came up with everything. We just were like, okay, now I need to make a vagina costume in a few days and get that ready and find a studio. And she didn't do it on her iPhone. We got someone to professionally film it in a studio, which was an experience in itself. But yeah, and then I had to figure out how to make a vagina in 2 days. So luckily I borrowed a friend's sewing machine and I made it happen. Oh, and your question was, how did the wrap come to be? Well, we were brainstorming ideas on how to make the footage, I don't know, get the most traction that it could. And she was like, oh, well, I'm really good at rapping, coming up with raps. And I was just like, of course you are. And she's like, I don't mind if you want to offer some of those as a reward, like if you want, maybe. And so that's what happened. So I offered, I think, 10. I was like, that will be enough for you, won't it? That's really generous of you. And they sold out pretty quickly.
And I love the idea that, again, a simple truth that if you have fun making something, then people will have fun, engaging with it. And I think that's so important.
in our office, obviously being an office full of women who talk all day about vaginas, we spent a lot of time watching it and laughing our heads off and then actually being like, okay, we need to get on board this like vagina costume situation. So
yeah, I had about 5 people pledge for. I was like, well, maybe for the people who don't want tampons, I can offer a vagina. Like I could make some more if I have to. So I offered that as a reward, and I had 5 people pledge for them, which was great until I had to make them. But they're all done now.
No more vagina making for you. So I guess it's not that uncommon to hear about the successes of crowdfunding. I mean, working in fundraising, I seem to hear, all I do is hear about the successes of crowdfunding. But I feel like it's not really spoken about when they don't work. And so I know you've done 2 successful campaigns, but I was wondering if you would have any pitfalls of crowdfunding that you might like to share with the audience.
It can be really tough, and it can be really disheartening to see some campaigns that are really meaningful and have a great positive social outcome, but they don't reach their target. But then some really frivolous kind of joke campaign can go far beyond what they ever, they didn't even take it that seriously, and it goes viral. So I don't know if I can tell you the negatives about crowdfunding too much, because I haven't, luckily, thankfully, touch wood, I haven't had a failed campaign. I can imagine that it would be really heartbreaking if you do put in all the effort into preparing for it and it doesn't reach the target, and you don't have any way of making it get there, even if it gets close. I think maybe people underestimate how much work is involved. I remember when I did my first one, I had a lot of support from Possible, and I thought, when I launched, I thought that was it. I was like, oh, now I've done all this hard work getting it ready, and I've been working for months on this campaign, all the work to prepare it, and I can just hit send or hit go, and the money will just roll in. And I remember on the launch date, the guy from Possible was just like, okay, so now your real work begins. And I was already exhausted, and I was just like, what? What do you mean?
Yes, very much so.
I think a lot of people think that, and I think a lot of organisations think that as well, like, oh, well, we'll just whack up a crowdfunding campaign and the money will roll in, but it's actually so much more.
It's a full-time job, and it's really stressful, because you've got that time deadline. If you don't reach, this is with a lot of the platforms, and I like this version. I think it works better, because if you don't reach the full target, then I don't think that it's fair to, if you don't reach the full target, you're not going to be able to afford to do the project, then I don't think it's fair to take people's money and compromise on, I don't know, how people would run a campaign if they didn't, how they would deliver the rewards if they didn't get the full target. But it does have that time kind of deadline looming, which can be really good, but it can also be really stressful. And often people, the supporters, your main supporters will do it at the beginning, and then there'll be nothing for the kind of main middle body of the campaign, and then everyone will come at the last minute and make it, I don't know what it is, it's some psychology thing about feeling the need to help it get over the line at the end. But oh my goodness, if I could just tell everyone who pledged for the campaign, if it would have been amazing if they'd done it on the first day, it would have been a whole month less of sleepless nights for me.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And sometimes we just don't know what's involved until we're actually doing it as well. I mean, we thought the podcast would take, a month to put together, and a year later, we actually launched our first episode. It took a lot of time. So I suppose what I'm wondering is, in your position as a social entrepreneur, how do you stay motivated, especially when you're not directly facing your cause every day? So, for example, if I compare a social entrepreneur for someone who would be starting a charity, so how do you balance the goals of running, I suppose, a profitable business, but also giving back, especially when you're not facing your cause every day?
That's a really good question. It's something that I have struggled with, because running, started the business because I was like, oh, this issue is so bad. I want to help and I want to do something. But very quickly found myself in the world of business, like spreadsheets and accounting and marketing and all these things that go with business that can be really, I don't know, I shouldn't say boring. It's boring but necessary. And it is really easy to lose sight of why you're doing it when you, get little issues coming up with manufacturing or with taxation or shipping or customer complaints or, I don't know, just competition popping up and things like that. Or, so many things that can go wrong in a business that, can really make you wonder, like, why am I doing this? And I did have a little trick because I am so far removed from the cause, I guess. I did have a little trick of like going and watching a documentary about, I don't know, what issues women are facing. It's like, it sounds bad that I say that it's a trick, but it just reminds me. It's like, oh, that's right. I am lucky. I come from this background. How fortunate am I? That's why I'm running this business. Okay, like a new kind of boost of motivation to really like get in there and make it work. But it is tough. Like it can become more about numbers and business as opposed to actually the cause.
That doesn't sound silly at all. Actually, I can really relate to that personally. And I think that what I wonder in relations to that is because you're working obviously with a partner, what are the challenges in making that partnership work? So you just talk about, some of the challenges in staying focused and to your goal, I suppose, and your why. But in terms of making the actual partnership work when you're giving a percentage of your profit to this cause,
it's something that I was really naive about in the beginning. Was I was like, oh, I believe, like, I want to support this cause. I'm just going to give this charity money and I'm going to say that I'm going to give them money and that's what, I don't know, that's how it will work. And I learnt pretty quickly that you need to form formal kind of agreements with charities, and that who was I to come along and just be like, I'm this girl with this idea, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. It takes a lot of work to earn someone's trust and for them to be like, well, why would we put our reputation on the line to, like, we don't know anything about you and you haven't proven to us yet that you're doing what you're, what you want to do. And so that, I guess that's a challenge in itself, is like finding a partner, a charity partner that aligns with your mission, that will actually take you on board, I guess, as a kind of partnership.
And then build a business case for it, if I understand you correctly as well.
Yeah, exactly. And because I struggled so much in the beginning when I first came up with the idea, and before I launched the crowdfunding campaign, because I knew that I needed a charity to align with, to give my idea feasibility in the eyes of people who were supporting the campaign, which, as you would, like, you go, okay, I'm going to donate money to charity. Which charity? And I did have issues with the charity that I first approached, because they already had an agreement with another, like they were in talks with another business that was doing sanitary products. And I didn't realize that was a thing until it was a thing. And as soon as I was successfully fundraised the first amount with Possible, people started taking me seriously, and I had so many offers of charities that wanted to work with me. And then I was just like, well, I haven't made any money yet. I don't have money to give away. I need to actually get this business working, financially sustainable first, before I can actually give away anything, because the whole idea of Tsuno is that it gives away its profit, like half its profits. And you will know, like, running a business it takes a while to earn a profit. A lot goes into it first before you can start making a profit. And that's something that, from a naive, idealistic girl wanting to help a cause point of view, I didn't realize. I was just like, if I sell this many pads, I can make this much money and I can give this much to charity. And I forgot to like include in there, like, all the aspects of running a business.
And so this formal agreement that you mentioned, it is part of, I suppose, managing this expectation between partners?
Yeah, and being really honest with them and letting them know that, this is an experimental kind of concept. Like, it isn't proven yet, and it is something that we have to work towards in the long term. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, you're not going to turn around in a week and say, here's your money from some pads I sold.
It's not an event. It's not a one-off event. It's a long-term agreement.
You're not a lemonade stand. Yeah, exactly. Just set up on the side of the road, sell some pads, and you'll be right.
And I don't, and that whole, like, if I was just selling pads once, if I was just doing this once, I know, like, I'd be able to donate a lot of money really quickly. But the fact that I need to purchase the next shipment of pads from the money that I've made, like, it needs to keep working, ongoing, and grow. So it's not like I can just be like, here's a big lump of money from the get-go.
You need the organisation to have the long-sightedness that you have as well. Yeah. So I actually saw a quote. I can't even remember where I saw it now. You wrote it, and I was really inspired by it. So I'm going to read it because I think other people will be inspired by it. So I think one of the strengths of not being an expert is that sense of flexibility in your approach, that you're more willing to just try things out and take risks. And I think that is such a great quote, because having worked in the charity sector, especially in a large non-for-profit, people are not willing to take risks because of what's at stake. And so what I'm actually wondering is, what made you take the risk? Like, what to start Tsuno? What actually made you take the risk? Because it's a big risk.
I guess the risk was, when I first started, was to my reputation. To begin with, it was like, if this doesn't work out, then I'll just look like a fool. And then it's become, slowly over time, it's become more of a risk of, if this doesn't work out, I have actually put money into it, and I have given up a lot of my, creature comforts and things, whilst I've just been putting everything into the business to make it work. So it does become like a really personal kind of thing. Like, the risk is that maybe that kind of, the idea that I've wasted that part of my life, or, but I probably come from things with an angle of, if I fail, I'm going to learn something. Like, I will know next time not to do that again, or like not to do it that way. So yeah, I'm probably quite comfortable with risk, because I know that I've had no money before, and I know that I've got we live in a country that you will be supported if you don't have any money. So the idea, maybe coming from that perspective, when I started Tsuno, I was coming from that perspective of having no money, so it doesn't scare me. Yeah, it'd just be my reputation that I guess I would be a bit worried about. If it didn't work out, I'd just be like, oh, I'm embarrassed.
So we're coming to the end of our chat today, unfortunately, but what I'd like to know is, if you could leave everyone listening with a few words that they would really take to heart today, what would that be?
Buy my pads.
Love it.
Support small business and be nice to people.
That is such a great message. I should say that I just came back from a cruise, right? And I was told that there will be pad on board and all the rest of it. They were not. So I think that there was, kind of one pack was really crazy expensive. And yeah, I really panicked because I'm at sea for 2 weeks. So I think that's a great message that I'm going to write in my survey back to the cruise line.
Can you give me their contact, and I'll just contact them with I heard this story that you guys aren't providing for your women.
That's right. So no, I think this is a great message.
So this month is International Women's Day on the 8th of March. And so I wanted to interview Roz today because of the amazing work she's doing in supporting women, obviously, because women get periods, men don't. Imagine if they did. That'd be a crazy world. But the other reason why I really wanted to get Roz on the podcast was because she is doing such amazing things using Instagram to create a community around buying sanitary pads, of women supporting women. And it's really, really inspiring. It shows if you create a genuine connection with people, and not just women, as with all people, but in this case we are talking about women, they will support you.
That's right. And also she talked about how her experience grew kind of organically. So she didn't force things upon people. The whole story, one thing led to another.
And I think that's really like the clincher in the story, because if anyone's listening to that thinking, oh, well, okay, I got to get it on Instagram and I got to hashtag everything and I got to follow 1 million people and I have to comment on absolutely everything, people are going to see through that.
Yes, it seems forced.
And excuse my French, but it's called the bullshit radar.
You are excused.
Because people, as you say, Mel, people can see through it. People can see through when people are not genuine. And the difference between what Roz has created on Instagram and through Tsuno is that, yes, she does make pads and she sells pads and you should definitely buy her pads. But she's also genuinely interested in empowering women through, in this case, through their periods,
And her very model of crowdfunding was really based on that, and the way that she reached out, and that was some of her tips to, the way that she network and collaborate. And we use all these buzzwords, but really it's just about genuine conversation and genuine connection.
Finding like-minded people. She didn't think to herself, oh, well, I've got to, basically take down Libra, to be able to make my business model work. No, she said, I need to find my customers. And guess what? Feminists fit my customers.
Yes.
And where do I find feminists? They're having those conversations at these networking events and also on Instagram. So I'm going to join that conversation in a genuine way. And then that, I believe, has shown a huge success for her through her crowdfunding campaign. And she's found her customer base. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please head to iTunes and rate us, or head over to our Facebook page, The Human Factor, and hit like and join in the conversation. You'd be surprised what a difference a rating and review can make to our iTunes reach. So if you have a spare minute, we would love, love, love you to do that. Tell us what you thought about the episode today. And if you had any thoughts or insights that you wanted to add to anything Roz said, leave us a comment on Facebook. Perhaps you've started your own social enterprise, or perhaps you have bought Tsuno pads. We'd love to hear from you.
Or say good day on Twitter at _Human Factor, or visit the website at humanfactor.com.au. You can leave us a voicemail, a message, and you can read our blog. This show is just one part of a community that wants to affect and grow social change. If you have a topic or a person that you would like us to feature on the show, please let us know.
And don't forget that we've got a Patreon campaign running at the moment, looking for support. So if you would like to give up a coffee this month and support us on Patreon, please head to patreon.com.au/thehumanfactor. You're all awesome. We'll see you next time.